Welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners. Let's start our today's session. Before starting our session, first let us see answers for the questions from a previous video. With regard to Forex swap, consider the following. It injects long duration liquidity into the system. Yes. The next statement is rupee-dollar swap will be done in the open market by RBI. This statement is incorrect because this Forex swap mechanism is different from this open market operation. Because here this rupee-dollar swap will be done in an auction and the primary dealers will be here the banks, who will deposit their dollars with RBI for a period of 3 years. So the second statement is incorrect as only one is correct. The answer here is A, one only. And the next question is World Happiness Report is published by which among the following? It is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network of United Nations. Now let's start today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. Our first article is when free speech is truly free. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic here is important aspects of governance. This entire article is all about whether free speech is the real essence of democracy and is it really important for an effective democracy? This article is defining what is the meaning of a free speech. According to the author, the free speech is a speech for which we don't have to pay a price. And a free speech means the hearer shouldn't get offended by the speaker's speech, and with that speech, he shouldn't intimidate the speaker. And the real freedom in free speech will lie not in the freedom of the speaker to say what he or she wants, but it lies in the restraint on the person who is hearing it to allow the speaker to say what he or she wanted to say. From the prelims point of view, what is important from this article is we should know about section 124A of Indian Penal Code. In India, there is a concept known as sedition. This sedition is dealt under this section 124A of Indian Penal Code. This section was brought by the British colonial government in 1870 when it felt there is a need for a specific section to deal with the radical Wahhabi movement. In order to deal with this Wahhabi movement of 19th century that was led by Syed Ahmad Barelvi, and it is centered around Patna. To deal with this Wahhabi movement, the British government has brought in this act known as Sedition Act under section 124A of Indian Penal Code. First of all, what is meant by this sedition? Just now we spoke about free speech. This sedition means a conduct or a speech that provokes, or if it incites a rebellion against the authority of the states. If a speech provokes people against the state, then this sedition charge will be imposed on that person. See, here you can see the definition of this section 124A of Indian Penal Code. According to this 124A of IPC, a person, whoever by his words, whether in a written format or through speech or through signs or through visible representation, if they attempt to bring into the hatred or contempt or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government that is established by the law shall be punished with imprisonment for life, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine. So, according to this sedition charges, a person whoever tries to provoke a rebellion against the government will be punished under this section 124A of IPC. The next article is time to recognize Israeli hold over Golan Heights. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations, and the subtopic is effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests. From the prelims point of view, what is important for us is this Golan Heights. Recently, Donald Trump has said that US should support Israeli sovereignty over Golan Heights that is seized from Syria in 1967. Here you can see this Golan Heights. This Golan Heights region is part of Syria until 1967, when Israel captured most of the area in 6-day war and occupied it and annexed it in 1981. But this annexation was not recognized internationally, and Syria demanded to the return of its territory. Syria tried to regain Golan Heights in 1973 Middle East War, but it didn't succeed. Both Israel and Syria, they signed an armistice in 1974. What is meant by armistice? It is a formal agreement between both the nations, both Israel and Syria, to stop fighting. It doesn't mean they are ending the war, but they considered this agreement as a negotiation for peace. And from then, from 1974, this Golan Heights issue was not touched. In 2000, Israel and Syria, they had their highest level talks over the return of Golan Heights and also a peace agreement between both the nations. But these negotiations didn't go forward. What is the reason that why Israel wants this Golan Heights? Because this area is a key source of water for an arid region. Here, the rainwater from Golan's catchment area will feed into this Jordan River, and this area will provide 1/3 of Israel's water supply. And the land is fertile with volcanic soil, which can be used to cultivate vineyards and orchards, and also it is favorable enough to raise cattle. Then who are the people who will live in these Golan Heights? Is it the Syrians or Israelis? More than 40,000 people live in this Israel occupied Golan Heights, and most of them, more than half of them, were Druze residents. Who are these Druze? These Druze are an Arab minorities who practice an offshoot of Islam, and many of them are from Syria, and they were loyal to Bashar Assad regime in Syria. After annexing this Golan Heights, Israel gave these Druze people the option of citizenship, but most of them rejected, and they still identify themselves as Syrians. And about another half of the people, 20,000 Israeli settlers also live there, and many of them were working in farming and tourism. And for us, from UPSC prelims point of view, we should know the location of this Golan Heights. The next article is Rupee dollar swap could boost foreign fund flows under voluntary retention route. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy, and the subtopic here is mobilization of resources. From the prelims point of view, what is important from this article is we should know what is meant by this foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, and we should know about this voluntary retention route scheme of RBI. First, let us see about this FDI and FPI. FDI means foreign direct investment, whereas FPI means foreign portfolio investment. Both these investments are important forms of foreign capital, and the real difference between the two is this FDI will take the control of the company in which it invests. Whereas the FPI will not own the ownership, it will not own the control or any management. Only thing it does is it will take away the profits out of its investment in shares and bonds without controlling the company. And both these FDI and FPI are the important forms of this foreign capital by the developing world. And both these are measured in terms of the percentage of shares that are owned, that they both own in a company. According to the regulation by Securities Exchange Board of India, foreign portfolio investment is an investment if its investment in the shares of a company is not exceeding 10% of the total paid up capital of the company. And whereas FDI is an investment, any investment above 10% of the total paid up capital of a company. And here the foreign investor can have control in the management of the company. So, what is this FDI? It is a foreign investment by non-resident entities like multinational companies in order to do their business operations in India with management. They want management with their investment and production of goods and services. There they want their management and in employing people and also while marketing their products. So in FDI, both ownership as well as control is with the investor, and the foreign investor will usually take the shareholding in the company and he will take care of the management completely or partially, and that depends on his size of investment on the shares. Then what about this foreign portfolio investment? It is the investment in shares, bonds, debentures, and according to the International Monetary Fund, this portfolio investment is also defined as cross-border transactions, and it involves debt securities without giving any control over the management of a firm on which this FPI will invest. Now let us see about this voluntary retention route scheme of the Reserve Bank of India. RBI had announced a separate scheme called as VRR, Voluntary Retention Route, in order to encourage the foreign portfolio investors to undertake long-term investments in Indian debt markets. So what are the benefits these foreign portfolio investors will get if they invest under this voluntary retention route? Here they will be exempted from regulatory provisions, from any regulations which were applicable to foreign portfolio investments in debt markets before. And also these exemptions will be given only if the foreign portfolio investors voluntarily commit to retain a minimum percentage of their investment in India for a period of their choice. Here we are not deciding for how much amount they should retain their percentage of investment, and the total amount that will be invested by this FPI through this route will be stipulated by the RBI from time to time, and the minimum retention period will be 3 years or other time period that will be decided by the RBI for every auction. And any entity that is registered as a foreign portfolio investor with the Securities Exchange Board of India is eligible to participate through this voluntary retention route. The name itself indicates that here this route, the participation through this route is completely voluntary. So yesterday we have seen about this Forex swap auction, which is going to be held on March 26, where the banks are going to deposit their dollars with the Reserve Bank of India in return for rupees, and they are going to buy back their dollars after a period of 3 years. So now RBI has opened up a scheme, a route even for foreign portfolio investors, and that route is voluntary retention route to participate in this Forex swap auction on 26th March. The next article is enforcing a ban will not end the menace of stubble burning, says researchers. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment, and the subtopic here is conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, environmental impact assessment. From the prelims point of view, this article is not of much importance, but it is important for prelims perspective. A recent study says that the enforcement of ban on this stubble burning is not a feasible solution, because on an average nearly 20 million tons of straw is generated in Punjab, and the farmers will have hardly 2 to 3 weeks to dispose of this and prepare their fields for the next crop. So they consider this stubble burning is a quick and cheap solution in order to prepare their fields for the next crop. But the government has come up with a ban on this stubble burning. According to these researchers, the government's effort for specialized farm equipment, especially this straw management, or a state ban on this stubble burning, is not going to solve the problem, because the farmer cooperative groups, which is a key link between the government and farmers, should play a more active role in educating the farmers instead of banning this stubble burning. The next article is political parties yet to comply with RTI Act. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic here is important aspects of governance. This article is all about, in 2013, the Central Information Commission that was established under the Right to Information Act of 2005 has brought 6 national parties under the purview of this Right to Information Act by declaring them as a public authority, and they should give the information about their national parties. But these political parties have refused to entertain the RTI applications that were imposed on them. And those 6 national parties are BJP, Congress, BSP, the Nationalist Congress Party, and the CPI and CPIM and the Samajwadi Party. A person named Vihar has filed an RTI regarding the details of donations that were collected by these 6 parties through electoral bonds scheme. We have discussed about this electoral bond scheme. Please look into our previous video. But these 6 political parties, they have refused to the directives of RTI on them. So many activists have approached the Supreme Court for non-compliance of these political parties on the Central Information Commission's order, and this matter is still pending in the Supreme Court. So now, when it comes to this Right to Information Act, it is only the Chief Central Information Commission is the only appellate authority that can declare a body as a public authority if it gets convinced that the organization fits into the criteria for being under the Right to Information Act. The next article is SCO offers mediation in India-PAK talks. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. From this article, now let us see what is this SCO. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a permanent intergovernmental international organization which is established to strengthen mutual trust and neighborliness among its member states, and in order to promote effective cooperation in politics, trade, economy, research, technology and culture, and also in education, energy, transport, tourism, environment and other areas. And this organization makes a joint effort. All the member states, they together will make a joint effort in order to maintain and ensure peace, security and stability in the region. Right now, this organization has the members of China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, India and Pakistan as its members. And recently in 2017, both India and Pakistan has got full membership in this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So now, according to this article, this 8-nation SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, wants to mediate between the India-PAK talks related to the post-Pulwama attack. The next article is a mere statement sans motive is not fraud, rules SAT. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. Though this article is not of much importance from the UPSC point of view, but here there is an institute known as SAT. What is this SAT? Securities Appellate Tribunal. Securities Appellate Tribunal, which is a statutory body that was established under the provisions of SEBI Act. It is established under the SEBI Act of 1992. Why it is established? Here you can see it is a tribunal. So that in order to hear and dispose the appeals against the orders that were passed by the Securities Exchange Board of India. The orders that were passed by SEBI, if a person is not satisfied, then he can appeal to the Securities Appellate Tribunal to look after, to resolve his grievance. And this tribunal will cover whole India. Now let's see today's prelims questions. The first one is regarding this voluntary code of ethics. And the next question is Cyclone Idai recently seen in news. It caused devastation in which among the following countries? Try to answer these and post your answers in the comment box. In tomorrow's video, we will see answers for these questions. Thank you.